John McCoy was a pillar of integrity and strength, not just in our halls of the legislature, but in every arena he entered. Long before coming to the legislature, John served our country as a veteran of the United States Air Force. He was a champion of tribal sovereignty and self-determination. He also inspired the next generation to learn about tribal history and culture since time immemorial, leaving an indelible mark on public education in Washington State. Today, a few of the House members will be honoring his legacy with personal stories and memories of the late Representative and Senator John McCoy.
As a young Native American woman coming down to Olympia, there weren't people who looked like me. There weren't people who sound like me. There weren't people calling for generations of change. But one person did. John McCoy had been down in Olympia. He welcomed me, he mentored me. He taught me how much better we could do when local, tribal, state, and federal governments work together. I will be forever thankful to John McCoy for teaching me how to walk in two worlds, to remember I'm Native American, and to remember I am also a Washington State legislator. Where our two worlds collide, we actually are creating a better place for all Washingtonians.
John McCoy was a profound influence on my life. I don't think I'd be here without him. I met Senator McCoy probably about 20 years ago. He was already really well known as a Tulalip leader, but for me, he was just a huge inspiration. You know, when I met him, I kind of asked him, like, how'd you get there? How'd you become a senator? And he told me it was really because he believed in his people, in his tribe, and he knew he had to fight for them. And he didn't have to think about it too much. He said, I got to fight for them every single day. And he said, that's what you need to do. So I did take that to heart, and it was something that made me always look up to him. He was a veteran. He was a tireless fighter here in the legislature, and to this day, when we walk the halls, when Native Americans walk the halls, we can really feel his presence, and it feels good. He was a wonderful person.
I was really honored to know Senator McCoy and to serve with him in the House. One of the things he really brought for the whole time that I served in the House is he had this strong sense of equity as he looked at all sorts of policies, but he was also a more visionary forward thinker than I was, at least as it had to do with things like technology. John was always pointing out to us in caucus, and because he chaired a committee that dealt a lot with technology, he was pointing out equity issues that would be raised. And honestly, at that point in time, not a lot of us really understood what he was talking about. Now, today, it's so obvious to all of us what John was talking about in terms of how technology can be really inequitable and problematic, even if it's great on the other side of things. From a personal perspective, my strongest memory of John was after we passed the marriage equality bill in 2012. John and Jeannie came to my and my wife's wedding and were about as joyous for us as we were for ourselves. And we had a strong bond because of John's commitment to equity in that way, and his and Jeannie's always support for our marriage and our being together over all the many years that we knew each other. I miss John greatly, and he has left a great legacy to the people of the state of Washington.
I miss my friend John McCoy because he was just such a steady rock of a person. He knew who he was, and he wanted other people to know who they were, and he respected them, and he communicated that he respected them. He worked really collaboratively with so many different types of interests and types of people. Whether we're talking about working across the aisle, whether we're talking with people who represented the industries that were too frequently in conflict with Indian country, whether he was working with different communities of color, whether he was working with young people. John always created a space where people came first, the relationship came first, and that's a skill and a value that is sorely missing today. And so I miss my friend because we need him. And so I'm hoping that others will step into that space that he created and take up those values and that vision that he brought to our legislature and our communities, and remember John McCoy and try and channel him.
In honoring him, we pledge to continue his work with the same passion and commitment he exemplified. John's memory will live on as a guiding light, inspiring us to strive for a community where equity, justice, and mutual respect are paramount. In the spirit of unity and remembrance, we say, thank you, John McCoy, for your enduring contributions. Your legacy will continue to guide us.
I'm John McCoy, and I am the House Democratic Caucus.